Welcome back, everybody. We're diving into Exodus today, chapter 29 to be exact.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Yeah. It's all about how Aaron and his sons, how they become priests.
Right, like the whole consecration ceremony. And it's amazing how this, ancient ritual still has something to teach us today
Yeah.
about dedication and service and all that.
Okay, so walk us through this ceremony. What actually happens?
Well, there's washing, a lot of washing with water.
Like a ritual cleansing.
Exactly. It's all symbolic, right?
Yeah.
Purification, getting rid of the old self, making way for this new life of service. Then there's the anointing with oil.
Ah, the oil. I always think of kings and queens being anointed.
It's a powerful image. It symbolizes divine approval, the Holy Spirit descending. And then, of course, there are the clothes.
Special gardens.
Totally. Each piece signifies a specific aspect of their role as priests. It's like a uniform, but way more loaded with meaning. It's interesting, right? Like, we still have these kinds of rituals today, even if they're not as elaborate.
Yeah, like graduation ceremonies.
Right. Weddings, even starting a new job, sometimes there's a whole onboarding process. It's all about marking a transition, a change in identity.
And it's not just about outward appearances, right?
No way. It's about the inner transformation, the commitment being made. Remember, these priests, they weren't just clocking in for a job. They were dedicating their lives to serving God and the people. It was a serious business.
Exodus 29 also talks about these daily offerings. What's up with that?
So the priests would offer bread and wine every day, and it wasn't just about appeasing God, It was a tangible symbol of their ongoing commitment.
Like a daily reminder of their responsibility.
Exactly. Consistency in action, showing up day after day.
That's intense.
It is. But it makes you think about the power of habit in our own lives, right? Like, even small actions, if we do them consistently, they can really add up. Think about meditation, exercise, spending time with loved ones.
The little things that make a big difference.
Exactly. It's not about grand gestures. It's about the daily grind, the discipline, the commitment to showing up for whatever it is that matters to us.
So we've got this elaborate ceremony, the emphasis on daily offerings.
Hmm.
What does all of this tell us about how the Israelites viewed the role of priests?
Well, they were seen as these intermediaries between God and the people. They were the spiritual leaders,
Yeah, a huge responsibility.
Absolutely. A position of honor, but also a huge weight on their shoulders. It required integrity, humility, a deep understanding of the law.
It's like a reminder that true leadership, it's not about power or ego.
Not at all. It's about service, holding space for others, guiding and supporting with integrity and humility.
Okay, so we've talked about the ceremony itself, the symbolism, the commitment involved, but I'm wondering, what can we, living in the 21st century, take away from all this? How does this ancient ritual resonate with our modern lives?
That's the really cool part. Because while the specifics might be different, the core principles are timeless. Dedication, purification, consistency, accountability. These are things we all grapple with, right?
It's about those deeper human desires
Hmm.
for meaning, for connection, for purpose.
Exactly. It's not about copying the rituals themselves, but about understanding the essence, the wisdom behind them, finding our own ways to embody those values in our own lives.
So we can learn from these ancient practices without actually, sacrificing bulls and wearing robes and...
Precisely. And that's what we'll keep exploring as we dive deeper into Exodus 29. We've been talking about Aaron and his sons, but Exodus 29 isn't just about them as individuals, right? It's about establishing this whole priesthood, this line of spiritual leaders to guide the Israelites, for generations.
Oh, that makes sense. Like creating a structure, a system for passing down that knowledge and, keeping that connection with the divine.
Yeah, exactly. And it reminds me, too, how we all have mentors and teachers, people who've passed on their wisdom, their experience. It's like we don't walk this path alone. You know what I mean?
It's true. We benefit so much from those who came before us. And then we kind of have that responsibility, I guess, to pass on what we've learned to those who come after.
Totally. It's a beautiful cycle.
Definitely. So what else can we learn from this idea of a lineage of leadership?
Well, one thing that stands out to me is how much emphasis there is on preparation, on training. Like, this consecration ceremony wasn't just a quick thing. It was this really intense process to make sure those priests were really ready for their role.
Yeah, it's like it wasn't just about good intentions. It was about putting in the work,
Yeah.
the discipline to really master the craft.
Exactly. Just like how doctors or artists, athletes, even they go through years of training.
To hone their skills.
Yeah, and that dedication to excellence, it's not just about personal achievement either. It's about honoring the lineage,
Hmm.
respecting the traditions, and making sure they continue.
Finding that balance, I guess, between preserving the past and, adapting to the needs of the present, which is something I feel like we talk about a lot these days.
For sure. And let's not forget either the whole element of sacrifice in this ceremony. They had animal sacrifices, right? A powerful symbol of giving up something precious, something really significant.
It's interesting because even though, we don't do animal sacrifices today, that concept of sacrifice still resonates. You know what I mean? Like we make difficult choices all the time. Give up something we want for something bigger, something more important.
All the time. Sometimes sacrifice means saying no to what we want right now,
Yep.
for a goal way down the line, or putting others' needs before our own.
Or just dedicating ourselves to a cause we believe in. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's hard to stay focused,
Yeah.
to not get discouraged to keep up that commitment over time.
It really is. And that's where the idea of community support comes in, like they didn't go through this alone, right?
How the whole community was there witnessing, participating, supporting those priests.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're not meant to do any of this alone. We need other people to encourage us to, hold us accountable, to remind us of what we're backing towards.
And just to be there,
Yeah.
to celebrate the good stuff and support us through the rough patches.
Hmm.
It's about having that sense of belonging, a shared purpose.
Totally. It makes such a difference.
Mm.
And knowing we can rely on each other, right? For help, for guidance.
Like we're all in this together.
Exactly. And honestly, that sense of community, of being connected, that's one of the best gifts we can give and receive.
I love that. It's a beautiful reminder that even though the past might be tough, we don't have to walk it alone.
Mm.
And, we can draw strength from the wisdom of those who came before us, from the people around us, and from, that belief that we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. And with that, we've covered a lot in part 2 of our Exodus 29 deep dive. But there's one more crucial element we need to talk about, the idea of covenant. And that's what we'll explore in our final part.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, the symbolism, the rituals, and the whole lineage of leadership and those sacrifices those priests made.
Yeah.
But you said there's one more piece we need to look at, the idea of covenant.
Right. And this is really key because, in Exodus 29, the consecration of those priests, it's not just this, standalone ceremony. It's directly tied to the covenant God made with the Israelites.
Oh, interesting.
It's like this sacred agreement,
Yeah.
a bond of mutual responsibility, commitment on both sides.
So it's not just a one-way street. Like God's making demands and the people have to follow blindly?
Not at all. God promises to bless and protect the Israelites, right? And they, in turn, promise to worship him, to live by his laws. The consecration of the priests is like their way of upholding their part of the deal.
Yeah.
Serving God and making sure his laws are followed.
It's like setting up this framework for a relationship, a way for people to connect with the divine. Okay, but how does that idea of covenant, like how does that translate to us today? I mean, we don't have these formal contracts with God in the same way.
Well, think about the commitments we make in our own lives, right?
Yeah.
To our partners, our families, our communities, even to ourselves. When we enter those commitments with, real intention, with integrity, they become like our own personal covenants.
So it's about recognizing like the weight of those bonds, that it's a two-way street, and that we have a responsibility to hold up our end.
Exactly. It's about showing up consistently, communicating honestly, and being willing to work through the tough stuff together. And it's interesting, right? Because just like that covenant in Exodus with all the rituals and all that, our own covenants, even the ones we don't really talk about, they're strengthened by those shared rituals and traditions. Think about family dinners, holidays, even just saying goodnight to each other.
It's those little things, those touch points that keep us connected.
Exactly. And when we start to see our relationships through this lens, as these sacred agreements, it changes things.
It's not just a burden or an obligation. It becomes something that adds meaning to our lives.
Yeah.
It helps us grow.
Beautifully said. And I think that's a really powerful way to wrap up our deep dive into Exodus 29.
Yeah, we went from this ancient ceremony to these really profound ideas about covenant, commitment, human connection. It's amazing.
It is. And it just goes to show you how these ancient texts, they still have so much to teach us.
Dedication, purification, consistency, accountability, sacrifice, community, covenant. It's like a whole blueprint for living a meaningful life.
It really is. It speaks to those core desires we all have for
Yeah.
meaning, for purpose, for connection. And it gives us some tools to work with, to navigate all the messiness of life and find our way back to that feeling of wholeness.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for guiding us through all of this. It's been, well, a true deep dive. And I feel like I've come up with a whole new understanding of these stories and the wisdom they hold.
The pleasure was all mine, truly. And to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to keep exploring. Dive into these ancient texts, think about what they mean to you, and see how that ancient wisdom can light up your own path.
Yes, keep diving deep, keep those questions coming, and until next time, keep seeking out that spark of the sacred in your everyday lives.